What's up guys, welcome back to another video in the Learn Linux series, and today we're going to continue our conversation about manipulating files. I hope you got plenty of practice using touch, output redirection, text editors, etc. with the tactics that I showed you last video. Today we're going to continue on that, and we'll also talk about making directories and deleting those files that we created. So let's take a look at the files that we have right now. We type ls, and we have a few different files here. So what if you wanted to make a file with a space in it? So if you were playing around with this stuff yesterday, you might have noticed that certain characters will cause problems and not let you make a file. So let's say I say touch testing semicolon pi and hit enter. You'll notice the pi command not found. So why is it saying a command not found? Well, again, we read the error, we see bash is telling us that pi, the command, is not found. And we type touch testing semicolon pi. So what this indicates to me, if I think about it for a second, is that it's reading pi as if it was a command, and that is exactly what is happening. When you type a semicolon, we are separating two commands. So if we type touch testing and then we say semicolon touch pi, it will run both commands on the same line. So you can see we have testing and pi both created now. Now, so what if we wanted that semicolon in the name of the file? The reason this is happening is because this prompt where we are running these commands is called bash, and bash has special characters which it uses for certain functions. So for example, if we want to use a quotation mark, a single quotation mark or a double quotation mark in a file name, let's say we have touch Kevin's file, right? And you can see here we have this angle bracket. Why? The reason for that is because, one, we have an open quotation mark right here and we never closed it. So it expects us to type in more information because again, the quotation mark is a special character for us to wrap around the string of text. And two, we have a space here. What that means is that even if Kevin's right here didn't have that quotation mark, what's going to happen, it's going to touch or create Kevin's and file separately, not Kevin's file. It'll make two separate files, and I can prove that right now. If I delete Kevin's with the quotation mark, hit enter, and type ls, you can see Kevin's and file separately. Now what we can do is we can use quotation marks, double quotation marks, right? And say Kevin's with single quotation mark and space file, ls, and you can see that we created Kevin's file with a single quotation mark. Now what if we wanted a double quotation mark in there? Well, obviously if we use Kevin's file, sorry, we're gonna have the same problem. Why? Because here's what's happening. You're opening a quotation mark and closing it, then opening it again, and then you never closed it again. So how can we avoid that? Well, there's two ways we can do that. One, we can simply use a single quotation mark around the file name, because the single quotation mark and a double quotation mark in bash both indicate the same thing. They both just wrap the text into a string, and that'll allow us to do that. And you can see here now we've created the file right here with a double quotation mark. What we can do alternatively, we could say touch Kevin backslash colon s backslash space file, and we'll say 2. And you can see that when we type ls, we now have Kevin's file 2. So this backslash is what we call the escape character. We can escape out of the actual function of that character. Even though it's a special character, it'll interpret it as an actual regular character instead of bash trying to actually do what it does with that character normally. And so that's how we can have spaces in our file names and quotation marks and all kinds of weird characters that might have a meaning in bash. And there's a list which you can look up. If you go on Google and type in bash special characters, you will find a list of different characters which bash interprets and uses in order to function. Another one that you'll see often is an asterisk. An asterisk is what is called a wildcard, and a wildcard literally means everything. So if I type ls star, it's going to ls everything. So to make it more evident, I'll type ls slash star, and you can see a bunch of files have opened up because it literally did ls slash and then star, which is on every single file instead of my slash directory, do ls. Star just literally means everything. And that's also pretty useful because what you can do as well with that is I can say ls star.txt. So fill in any text at the beginning and then give me everything that ends in .txt. This is a pretty cool feature which you can use in Bash. But if I wanted an asterisk in my file name, I'm going to have to do quotation marks, right? Something star, and that's going to work, or I'm going to have to escape it with a backslash, and that also works as well. Now this with the quotation marks and escaping works in most all commands for the most part. So whether it's ls, touch, echo, when you're like redirecting to a new file name, what else? Opening something in a text editor, when you're deleting files, all of these same rules apply with the quotation marks and the escaping of the characters. So now let's take a look at how do we create a directory. So for creating a directory, we have a command called mkdir, and we can open up the man page here, and you can see it literally says make directories. So if I do mkdir folder and we type ls, you can see we now have this thing that looks like a file but is really folder called folder. And how can we be sure that it's a folder? On some distros such as my own, if you type ls, you'll have colors to differentiate between files and folders. But sometimes on some systems you won't have that. So for example, here you can say ls-l, okay, and then when you come here and look at the side, at the permissions, you'll see right here that there's a D at the beginning of the permissions of folder, and that's indicating that it is a directory. So now that we have that directory, how do we put stuff in it? Well, same way we did before, right? We can say echo some text, use the redirection, and we say folder slash. Remember, when we're saying slash, we're going inside of a folder, and then some file1, right? And how can we view that content? Same way we did before. Same way we did before in the previous videos, ls folder. And we see that there's a file called file1, and we can say cat folder slash file1. We have some text inside of file1, which is inside of folder. Now let's make another folder inside of that. So let's say mkdir folder slash, and we'll call this second folder folder2. And if we ls folder, we'll see that we have folder2 and file1 inside of there. So we say ls folder slash folder2. It's an empty folder, there's nothing in there. So now how do we go about deleting files and folders? We use the command called rm. So if we do man rm, you'll see it says remove files and directories, and you can look through these options as well, through all these flags. And well, all we do is say rm and the name of the file. So we have a file called file, that's rm file. Type ls, you can see it is now gone. Just to avoid mistakes, same way we did mb-i, and we said we can say pi into something and it'll warn us that we're overwriting a file. We can also say rm-i and something, and it warns us we're removing a file before we do it. And so I'll show you at the end of the video how we can make this -i permanent so that it always happens every single time you run these commands. For now, let's go on to deleting folders. So you can see if I type rm folder, what happened? Cannot remove folder, folder is a directory. So why is that? So rm needs a special option so that you can remove the contents of a folder. So what you can do is you can go in and manually delete every single file in there, right? So if we go folder slash, we have file1, right? We can manually go in there and delete that. And we can say rm folder2, folder2, and we can delete, do we have something else in there? We don't. Anyways, so it's empty. I guess we never made that file. And then we can go in and go into folder2, and we can run it again, and we'll see it'll still not let us. So we go and read the man page and say, what's going on? Well, what gives? And here we have a flag called -r. So if we look at the man page right here, it says remove directories and their contents recursively. So this option tells us that this deletes directories. So we do rm-r folder slash folder2, and we do ls folder. We've now deleted folder2 from folder using -r flag. Additionally, notice there's another option here called -d, which you can also use. So we have rm-d, and we say folder. It'll also delete it, assuming the directory is empty. That is the only thing. The directory has to be empty. And alternatively, there's another command which does the exact same thing as rm-d, which is rmdir. Assuming the folder is empty, you do rmdir and the name of the directory, and it'll delete it. Now, what's something else that we can do? If we mkdir folder and we mkdir folder2, and we have touch, we'll type to a bunch of random files, and we'll say, actually we'll cd into the folder, and then we'll say touch, and then a bunch of random files. Now we have a bunch of files, and we want to delete all of them, right? Because we want to delete all of the files before we delete the directory. we can just say rm star, which is a wildcard, remember, and it's going to literally delete everything inside that folder. And you have to be very careful with this, because this can accidentally delete a lot of things. Even like if we're back here and we say rm folder star, that works as well. There's nothing in there right now because we deleted everything, but that's another way to do it. You can also say rm-r folder, and that'll delete everything in the folder, including the file contents as we saw on the man page. And you don't have to do the whole /star and everything like that. But again, be very careful, because if you go into slash and you say rm-r/, luckily there's some protections. It'll not let you do it. But if you delete one of these, it will let you go in and delete one of these folders individually. So if you go and delete /var, for example, you're going to have a lot of problems, and you're going to have to reinstall your distribution and redo your VM. You don't want to do that. So be very careful deleting files. Make sure you're deleting the proper path. Don't start with a slash unless you have the full path written out to the exactly where you want to go to. And then, again, be careful what you're deleting. So now let me tell you how you can make it so that you don't accidentally delete your files or move your files and overwrite them, as I was telling you earlier with the -i flag. If I do nano directory, which we're in now, but I just in case you're somewhere else, dot, and we hit tab twice, you'll see there's a few hidden files. When a file starts with a dot, it means that it's a hidden file. So if you see, if I type ls, you can't see those files up there. If I type ls-a, which means all, you can see that those hidden files now also show up. So if I type nano /, sorry, not pound, tilde slash dot bash rc, here we have our configuration for our bash prompt. So this is how we can add aliases. So if we type one command, it actually does something else. So what we can do is we can enable these aliases right here. So we have, if we go scroll down and we start deleting, right, delete these comments. If you see there's a # before the text that's on this line, it means don't interpret this line as a comment. It's literally just writing text to inform you that I don't want you to execute this command. So if I remove the pound and the space before this alias, and we go down to these aliases as well, you'll see that we'll now have ls reassigned to this other command. We're reassigning the words ll to this other command, which is ls-l, and then we have l, which is just going to be reassigned to ls-la. Remember, we said -i will give you the ability to be asked when you want to delete something or move something or copy something. If you're going to overwrite it, like, it gives you an option to say yes or no, I do want to do this action. So here, when I type rm, it'll actually do rm-i. When I type cp, it'll actually do cp-i, etc., etc. So now that I've deleted those comments, we have our aliases. I'll type save, Control-X, Control-O, Control-X, clear. And if I type ll, remember, we just had that added into that file. Notice command not found. Why? Because the bash rc only gets loaded up when you first start your bash prompt. So if I go log out and I log back in and I type ll, now I have that alias associated with that command. So what if I didn't want to log out? I can simply say source space and then /bashrc, and then that'll give us our aliases as well. That's a different way if you don't want to log out and log back in. And how can I view my aliases? I simply type alias. And now you can see literally says alias, the word alias, then the name of a command, whatever name you want to give it. You can give it whatever you want, as long as it doesn't intercept with something that already exists. Or in this case, if it does exist, it'll just overwrite it. And then we'll say the equals and then quotation marks, the command that you want to replace it with, that command that you created. So now when I type rm as.txt, remove regular empty file, yes I do, and now I can avoid some problems of accidental deletion and overwriting of files. So let's say you have an alias in here and you want to run the real command. So let's say you have mv-i and you want to run the real mv without -i. What you can do is you can type / and then the name of the command, so mv space, and then we'll say test into test2, and you can see it didn't prompt me for anything. It simply overwrote the file. An alternative is to remove the alias from your bash rc, nano.bashrc, so that next time it doesn't show up when you start up your prompt. And even if you source bash rc, so you'll notice that when you type alias, that your mv is still there, even though you source bash rc. So you can either log out and log back in, and that'll fix the problem, as it'll reload the aliases. Alternatively, you can say unalias So alias, instead of alias, you're saying unalias space mv, and type alias again, you see our alias is now gone. And of course, if you don't just want to do it temporarily, you don't have to remove it from your bash RC. You can just type on alias really quick, or you can again do the \mv and then the name of the command, and it'll work fine without the alias. So this is a lot of information. So what I want you to do for your assignment is to play with this, obviously, same way. Create files, all those files they created, learn how to delete them, put them in folders, move them, right? So you have something, move that into folder 2, right? And then delete the whole folder with rm-rf folder 2, right? And now it's gone. And what I want you to do is I want you to, in 2 commands, only 2 commands, you're going to create the path /root/linux/is/vary, right? And you'll see if I just type mkdir that, it says no such file or directory. Why? Because Linux doesn't exist, is doesn't exist, and vary doesn't exist. So you can do mkdir linux, mkdir linux/is, and then mkdir that whole thing, and it'll work because Linux and is already exist. But there's a way for you to do all of that instead of having separate commands one by one in one single command. I want you to read the mkdir man page. There's one of these options right here which will tell you how you can do that. One of these will create the directories that you need so that you can do this command right here and not have a problem. And then inside of that, in a second command, I want you to make a file called fun. So essentially you're going to do mkdir/root/linux/is/vary, and then you're going to do touch/root/linux/is/vary/fun. And you're going to have a file called fun inside of that folder. ls, view the file, play around with it, and then you're going to just delete the whole thing. That's your little tiny assignment. Read the man page, you figure it out. Try to read the man page before you Google it. Don't Google it if you can. It's pretty easy. And yeah, I hope you have a good day, and I'll see you in the next one.